session. Hopefully I can make this session as informative as possible for you. Maybe a quick introduction about myself before we get started and talk about the topic of the day. So my name is Gero Decker. I live in Berlin, Germany. I came to SAP because I started a company 12 years ago called Signavio, which recently joined SAP, and we formed a new unit. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's start maybe where you are, or a little bit before, the state that you're currently in, because I assume most of you are currently studying somewhere around the world. And obviously, I also went to the university back in the time. Originally, when I still went to high school, my number one interest or goal to when going to university was to study law. And why was that? Because I was a big fan of the John Grisham books. I don't know if you've read any of those, but it's always, young, motivated lawyers who fight against the injustice in the world and take down the biggest Goliaths through the means of the legal system. So I thought, I want to be the same and, study law to change the world for the better. But then something very interesting happened. I went to my local university. It's a town called Brunswick in Germany, where I grew up. So I went to the local university and I wanted to check out, is law really that exciting in university? And I entered a lecture, hundreds of people in the room. And what happened to me was that it was so damn boring that after 5 minutes, I literally fell asleep. So when I woke up 10, 15, 20 minutes later, I thought, this is not the right thing for you. You have to switch gears. So I basically made the choice not to go down the path of studying law, but to follow some of my other passions, and that was programming, building software. So I looked for the right university to study. I went to a university called University of Potsdam, or the Hasso-Plattner Institute as part of that, right outside of Berlin. This is how I came to the region. And this was great fun, exactly the thing that I was looking for. And at HBI, maybe you know that Hasso-Plattner was the one of the founders of SAP as well. So there was this was my first exposure also to SAP, and I attended something that you're doing virtually today, a student day where multiple people from SAP talk about what they're doing, some of their projects. I did the same thing. We still did it in person, driving down to Waldorf in a big bus to look at some of the cool projects happening in technology in particular at SAP at the time. So this was my first touch point with SAP as a company, but that's many years ago. After I finished university, I actually started working as a consultant because I thought this is the most fun, the most impactful use of my time. And it was very interesting because my first project took me to a telco company, Deutsche Telekom, which is the market leader in Germany for telecommunication services. And we were thrown into a project that was about mass market readiness of one of the new products they had launched called Entertain. Entertain for the first time brought to you not only broadband access like DSL plus telephony, so this was there before, but also a third thing, and that was TV, right? This was new, that TV was done through internet connectivity, IPTV, and Deutsche Telekom was the first in the German market to bring that to the customers. But the project was so horrible and it failed. So the market entry failed pretty badly in the first instances, that people like us and many others were called in to look at this and make sure that we would reach this mass market readiness for the new product. And it was interesting to see, because for me, it was the first time that I was exposed to the complexity that happens inside of companies. I had attended a lecture at university which centered around process management. So the idea that you understand how an organization works through what we see here on the screen, flow charts and process models to map out what happens first, what happens next, what are the decision points, what is happening manually, what is happening in an automated way, because these types of process models help you understand what is going on, but it also helps you understand what is broken or what needs to be changed. But for me, that was a very abstract thought, right? So at university, we only played through examples like, I don't know, running an online store, right? An order comes in and it needs to be checked whether it's on stock. If it's on stock, then, it needs to be packaged into a carton and then it gets shipped. So I always thought, what's the deal, right? The examples we always looked at were super simple and seemingly not a problem for, a normal person to go and, make it work. But at Deutsche Telekom, it was fascinating because the seemingly simple processes, like I order this entertain product in my shop around the corner or online, all the way to getting, my router and getting my, connectivity activated and getting, access to maybe a soccer subscription on TV. The sheer amount of people involved, departments involved, IT systems involved on that path were just mind-blowing for me. So from ordering a simple entertain subscription to getting it live at home, typically this process goes through 12 different departments inside of the telco, and it runs through more than 100 IT systems in the back that do all kinds of different things. Like, for example, sending out the hardware, or systems that manage capacity of the networks, right? And that check whether they promise more bandwidth to customers than there's actually, copper or fiber in the ground to handle that type of capacity, or TV services that need to be switched on, contract management, and so on and so forth. So for me, it was really exciting to see how much complexity, how many dependencies there are, how many people involved, how many people you need to engage in order to understand how a seemingly simple thing from a customer perspective runs end to end, and then find out, what are the things that work well, what are the things that don't work well. So this was so impactful on me, this experience, to see this in action, these organizations and getting to grips with making these complex processes work, that we decided, being a couple of friends who were all IT people, programmers by background, to look at, what can we do in terms of technology to help solve this puzzle, right, of bringing this process clarity, this process understanding, but also this ability to bring people together to talk about how, what are the things that we need to change. We thought about that and the type of technology or products we would need to provide to companies like Deutsche Telekom or others to help them solve this problem. Here in this picture, you see a very old photo. So I'm the one, the second of the left. The other two, Nico, Willi, and Torben, my dear co-founders, we then started back in 2009, 12 years ago, a company called Signavio, which had the idea that we took the principle of Wikipedia, which is about bringing as many people together as possible so that everybody can contribute the bits and pieces that they know, so that in the end, you have the biggest possible knowledge base in the world. And we wanted to apply the same principles of collaboration, of social networking, to the world of business process, to basically invert the picture, where previously the assumption was you only need 2 or 3 people who design the perfect process and then you just need to follow. And we said, no, it needs to be the other way around. It needs to be coming from bottom up. You need to involve everybody who has something to say, who knows something, who has ideas to contribute, who helps with identifying solution alternatives and so on. And we provided a piece of software for that. That was the Signavio suite, the Signavio platform. That was basically a collaboration tool that brought many, many people together in an organization to talk about business processes, to talk about the things that work well, that don't work well, that need to be changed so that you can redesign your business. So that company was a big success, and we grew massively over the last couple of years. So starting from 4 founders, our team now has roughly 800 team members, right? So going from 4 people to 800 is quite a journey, and it's only possible if you're addressing a topic that is really relevant for organizations. And now you might ask yourself, well, how big of a topic can this be, right? Why is this topic of process management booming so much, right? And we're not the only company who grows so fast. There are others in the marketplace as well who've seen significant growth with providing technology for process management and process automation to the market. But one thing, and I wanted to show you one little example of the fact that things are changing so much faster these days than they used to be. And it just keeps on accelerating, right? While 10, 20 years ago, people would go into change efforts maybe every couple of years. Now we feel like we need to change things all the time in organizations, constantly adapt. And I gave you one small example here. How long does it take for certain products and services to reach 50 million users? If you look at the iPhone, guess how long it took from the first iPhone shipped to 50 million users? What do you think? Actually, it took, it's a very successful product, right? No doubt about that 50 million users is a massive number, but it took 12 years to reach that type of penetration, that type of footprint in the market. Now, if you go to the next example, YouTube, guess again, the iPhone took 12 years to reach 50 million users. YouTube, was 3 times as fast. It took 4 years to reach 50 million users. And time seemed to get even faster. Here's an app or a service that you might have heard of or not, but this app reached 50 million users in an amazing 13 days, right? This is the type of speed that we're seeing in this world right now. Things that work, things that prove successful, they just spread like crazy. And if you are now Googling what this is, I don't even know how to properly pronounce it, Arogya Setu, this is actually the COVID tracing app in India. And it reached 50 million people in 13 days. It reached 100 million users in 40 days. So one of the fastest spreading products or services that we've seen on the market. But this is not only apps or digital services, but this is how the world changes, right? We've seen our customers go through the pandemic. Suddenly, nobody can go to work anymore. Suddenly, borders are closed and trucks that need to deliver goods can't cross the border anymore. Or you have customers who you can't meet physically anymore, and you need to exchange your touch points with them. So this all induces so much change on organizations, which focuses them to rethink, to readapt to this new environment, oftentimes in a matter of weeks or months, whereas previously you had years to adapt to them. So this is one of the reasons why companies like Signavio and topics like process management has seen such a massive success. So just painting a picture once again, yes, I think I talked about most of the relevant things. Signavio starting, growing fast globally, and joining SAP earlier this year in 2021. So let's come back to that. Let's come back to that picture a little bit. And let's talk about some of the things that our software actually does, okay? So, because you might ask yourself, well, okay, I understand change is happening. Change means you need to change the way you work as a company, but how does that look like in particular? So that's why I brought two example screenshots for functionality actually for our software, to give you a little bit of a glimpse of some of the things that we support with customers. And the one thing I wanted to start with is starting with the customer of our customers in mind, right? So whenever you talk about changing things, how you work, you do that for a reason, right? And the reason can be because you want to do things faster, cheaper, better. But most of the times it's really about improving the life, the relationship, the experience of your customers for what you're doing, right? So it's about, you run, let's say a store before, suddenly the pandemic hits, you have to close the store, and suddenly you have to offer click and collect services, right? Which is something that we're still selling goods to your customers, but in a vastly different way than you did before. And this requires a different type of experience, a different type of journey with your customers, different touch points, different moments of truth. So what we're helping with, and Signavio is one of the leading vendors for that, is so-called customer journey modeling, right? So we typically start with, what are customers actually going through? What are the touch points? But also, what's the sentiment? What are the moments of truth? Where do we frustrate our customers? Where do we create too much effort to get things done? But also, where do we delight them? Because this is the guiding principle for you to decide what are the processes that I even need to look at, right? So for example, in the DSL provisioning process that I showed you earlier, for example, we discovered that when people ordered, that 30% of the customers on day 10, something between day 10 and day 20, they would change their mind in the sense of what subscription, what product they wanted to have. And this created so much turbulence internally that the process took so much longer than if it was straight through without changes, oftentimes even leading to the fact that you got the wrong products and things didn't work out, right? So you know what you need to fix, what you need to look at. The moment of truth, for example, of, this is when customers change their mind. And how do I need to, how can I anticipate that? How can I react to that? How can I prepare for that, right? Can I maybe even inform the customer better to begin with, so that the customer makes the right choices up on the point of buying, rather than changing their mind 10 days later? Or if there are certain things that are more problematic, can I maybe even offer the customer to say, look, we're about to enable the functionality and everything for you tomorrow with the old configuration. Don't you want to get started with that? And then, a month later, we can just overnight switch it over to the other thing that you just changed to, rather than blacking out for 3 weeks and not giving any response, or things to fail, and so on and so forth. So this would be an example for where customer experience, the journeys your customers go through, really, hit the operating model down below, the processes that happen internally where stuff happens. Another piece is obviously the moment you start talking about business processes, how does that look like? And this is where we develop technology that allows you to do several different things. One thing is, wherever we have data available, and this is the case in many instances because you're using IT systems throughout, like in the Deutsche Telekom example that I just shared with you, more than 100 IT systems recorded all kinds of different steps along that chain to getting the access to broadband and TV. And all of this data can be used and basically pulled in to reconstruct what is happening, right? First this, then that, then that. And because you don't not only have one customer ordering something, but you might have, hundreds or thousands or millions of customers going through similar paths, you can start reverse calculating. What are the typical patterns? What are the different variants that you have in that process that work or don't work, right? And you can start estimating, this leads to rework, loops, wrong outcomes, versus here, this is the straight through path that leads your customers to success. So process mining is one of the technologies to do exactly that, to take data as an input and to reverse engineer how the process works, where the bottlenecks are, where you can improve, and so on and so forth. But there's also modeling, of course, where you then go in and say, okay, based on my understanding of the process of how it works today, these are the 5 things that I want to change going forward. These are the things where people need to behave differently and do a different job, or where we distribute the work differently, or technological implications in the sense of, this is where I need to reconfigure systems. This is where I need to introduce a new app for a particular task, or this is where I want to automate a decision through AI, maybe, that was done previously by a person, because that way I can speed up the process big time and make it more real time. So these are the types of things that we provide software for. So it's super exciting to be able to, serve that space, to serve thousands of customers across the board, from telcos to retail, logistics, financial services, you name it, where we help these organizations understand their business processes, improve them, innovate on them, and then transform them in the sense of putting that change to action in those organizations. So it's a super exciting space to be in. We're one of the market leaders in that. Pretty young and fast growing team. So as I said, the slide says 700, the number is changing every day. We're already quite a number of more people than that. And we are going to grow the team big time over the next couple of months. Around half of that team is involved in building the software, right? In development, design, user research, quality, all of the things, product management, all of the things that you need to build a great product. And the other half is in go-to-market. So those people working with customers, configuring the systems for customers, helping them, but also doing things like marketing and so on and so forth. Really an exciting space to be in, fast growing, super impactful for the organizations that we serve, but also a great team, fast growing, also very ambitious and ready to take on, even more challenges going forward. So I think a great place, if you think about where you want to spend your future, that you should definitely check out. So yeah, now, happy part of SAP, coming from an independent company, Signavio becoming part of SAP, now forming a business unit, so-called line of business, where we bring this topic of process management forward for all of the practitioners out there, for the thousands of customers out there. So happily tracking along and having a lot of fun along the ride. So talking about fun, obviously these times of Corona it's a special thing to be able to meet in person. This was one of the events that we did a couple of weeks ago before at least Germany and some other countries went back into pandemic restrictions and everything. So great team, a lot of great fun together. And then hopefully once we're through this whole pandemic thing, also the ability that we can spend more time together. The team is distributed around the world. So with locations in Germany, in the US, in the UK, in France, in Australia, in Japan. So really also great opportunity if you're looking to meet people from around the world, or also, checking out different locations and looking at, what's happening in the different markets. I think this is a wonderful opportunity to be part of that. So with that, I'm already through with my little presentation about process management in general, and then our, contribution in there as Signavio as SAP Business Process Intelligence. So I hope I could create some interest for the topic. And even better, even I would be super happy if you're even considering joining us in one form or fashion through internship, working student relationship, but also once you're done with studies to join us in one of the many positions that we have. So if you want to build your skills, there's a site for that at sap.com/nextgen. If you're looking for jobs in particular, and there are many of them that we have in our group, you can go to sap.com/career, and you can find the BPI, Business Process Intelligence related postings through these two hashtags on the website, sap.com/career. So with that, I'm concluding. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I think we have like a minute or two, maybe questions that you might have about us, about the topic, about, SAP in general. So, Andre, help me, help me run the Q&A session.
Sure, Gero. So there are two questions in the chat. So I would start with the first. What do you think is the next big step for BI tools on the market? Is on-premise still a thing, or is cloud the only future? And what do you think about BI in combination with artificial intelligence? Are data analysts even necessary for dashboarding when AI could take this over?
Yeah. So first word about on-prem versus cloud. So we have been a cloud company from day one. Yes, because 10 years ago, some customers still wanted to install the stuff themselves. We provided that option. We have discontinued that. So we're a pure cloud player. It's so much better for us and the customers alike. We can innovate much faster. Also, if there are challenges with the software, we can react much faster to it. And for customers, it's so much, less work. They always get the best performance, the best response times, the best uptime, and at the same time, a super secure environment. So cloud is the future, and the same is for us. Data volumes and stuff like that, it might have been a problem many years ago to handle that on the cloud. Today, that's, the cloud is the most scalable environment that you can imagine. So that's what we're building against. BI tools, next step on the market. Well, so, BI tools, they have been more like, I built my reports or I have my dashboards and I explore a little bit of things. What we're doing is already much more focused on the process notion of things. So going beyond pure KPIs, what you would do with a BI tool, and giving much deeper process analysis. But what really the next step is a system that works for you. You want to, how people have worked in the past or still today oftentimes is you build a hypothesis, you have a question in your head, and then you use the tool to find out whether your hypothesis is right or wrong, or you have a sense that something is wrong or something could be better, and then you test it with a tool. We're in the course of inverting that in the sense of automatically giving you certain insights about processes, about how you work. And because we have a lot of benchmarking information, we can also tell customers, look, these are the 5 things that the best performers for a particular area do differently in their business processes compared to the companies that are worst performing. So we can hint you to things that you might want to do, like changes in your organization, but also technology that you might leverage that you don't leverage so far. So AI obviously plays a large role in that because it gives you it's the underpinning of that feedback loop, right? To provide insights and recommendations, and then people either adopt it or reject it, or you provide insights and people flag them as relevant or interesting or uninteresting, and the system learns along the way of what it presents to you. And at the same time, AI, or rather statistics, helps you in many other ways to, for example, find outliers, anomalies, trends, those types of things, so that, with the data volumes that we have available today, you can find a couple of very interesting things very, automatically, so that the people who sit in front of the system can then go through the 10 most, interesting items and react on that. So AI obviously is a big thing. And as technology is taking over more and more tasks, it's the same thing here. We want to shorten the time to insights, and we want to provide deeper and more insights than what you could manually do. So, but people are still super important. I mean, you can't change a company. Target state design is still something done by people. Changing an organization is inherently done by people. So, we're not running in the direction of an autonomous, fully automated company anytime soon in most areas.
And then to sum it up, a very short and interesting question. I think you triggered some interest. So is an internship role possible? So do you have also interns at your teams?
Yes, so we have people who visit only for a short period of time, and we do that actually in multiple different stages. So during studies is one, but also what we super love to do is also people who are going through a PhD program and to want a break for 3 months or 6 months or so, see real life and practice and customer data, those types of things. This is something that we super love to do, so that you can come in for a short period of time, see whether this is something for you, and then you can decide to come back later. Or if you say, no, not for me, to choose something different.
That was it.
Fantastic. And thanks everybody for tuning in to this session. I hope I could, transport some excitement for the topic of process management, and also for us as a team. So I would really be happy to if you join, and if you do apply, and then hopefully join later, do send me a message that we met in this forum here. I would be super happy about that.